If you think multiple orgasms are only for women, you are dead wrong. I'm Karen Bigman, sex and relationship expert, and on this podcast, we address the realities of midlife sexuality that most people are thinking about, but rarely talking about. Today, I've got Jim Benson, a relationship wizard. He spent over 2 decades helping men become more confident, connected, and skillful lovers. His flagship online program, Multi-Orgasmic Lover, has reached more than 10,000 men worldwide. He's a certified sky-dancing tantra teacher, want to hear about that, trained counselor, and a longtime professional coach with the ICF. Welcome, Jim.
Great to be here, Karen. Thanks for inviting me.
We know that women are multi-orgasmic, but your technique teaches men how to be multi-orgasmic. Why do we think that men can't be multi-orgasmic, and how can they learn to become multi-orgasmic?
Well, just to make sure we're clear what we're talking about, we don't mean multi-ejaculatory experiences. So there are a few guys who will, ejaculate and then be able to ejaculate again in a very short period with a very short refractory period and then ejaculate again. And some guys can do this up to 5 times, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about having an experience of intense pleasure go through your body without ejaculating and you being able to repeat that as many times as you'd like, basically stopping when you're exhausted.
All right. And does this work for women too? It sounds really good.
Well, actually, I think that we could say everybody can be multi-orgasmic, men and women. It's just not true. I think there are some people that are just not, either they're physiologically not designed for that, or they have some level of like, I'm not interested in that. Like if there's a guy who says, I have sex with my wife twice a week and it's, we last for 10 minutes and I ejaculate and she seems to enjoy herself. And, that's all I'm interested in. So that person is not going to say like, how do I become multi-orgasmic? It's just not in their wheelhouse. It's not their focus. But for people who are like, maybe they're more brain hackers or guys who are just looking for more experience. Like I'm reading about this and it seems really fascinating. How can I learn how to do that? That's the guy who I think would be, okay, let's learn some basics on how to get to this place of being a multi-orgasmic man.
So I'm going to say most men, but this is not exclusive to men. Give me the 10 steps, the 5 steps. I want a quick fix. I need these multi-orgasms. I need to up my sex life. Give it to me, Jim. Tell me how we do this.
I'd say that's probably the first stage is learning stamina. So if a guy is going to ejaculate in 10 seconds or 30 seconds or a minute or so, he's not going to have the time to reach these peaks and follow these waves of energy. So his first job is to learn how to have a longer lasting sex while being relaxed in his body. So that doesn't mean, okay, I'm going to be thinking of, baseball statistics or grandma's panties or whatever, the stuff like that he does to avoid ejaculating.
Where'd you come up with that one? Okay.
Actually, Susan Bratton came up with that one. So how do you find a way to last longer, stay relaxed, allow more pleasure in your body? And so you have ejaculatory choice. That's step 1. And there's a process for learning that. We learn a pelvic rocking method. We learn the PC squeezes or Kegels for men. There's a sexual breathing practice that they do. And then along the way, we have to look at what's your lifestyle like? Can you relax? Are you holding tension your whole life? Is it challenging for you to kind of rest back and settle into yourself? And for guys who struggle doing that, they might have to make lifestyle changes. So that's the stamina part. And then once guys have the stamina, then it's like, okay, well, now we can start playing with learning to surrender more, opening your body up so that the ejaculatory impulse starts to move up your body. And instead you start feeling waves of pleasure coming up. You might be making sounds or noises. Your body is making, some kind of interesting reactions. And then the waves of pleasure start to come through. And once one comes through, you can just say like, that feels really good. Let's have another one of those, because you're not ejaculating. You could still be erect and hard, but you don't necessarily have to have an ejaculation.
Do you have to be hard to have an orgasm?
It's a great question. Some men do, but I think guys who really get to the core of this work can have orgasms without an erection.
I think that would be very helpful to many men, especially as they age and start to have erectile difficulties, that if they could have the orgasms without, I don't know how their female partners would feel about it. Some might be great with it, some might not be so much. But I think that's a great thing to be able to learn to do something like that.
Yeah, I think with an erection, there's a kind of like it acts as a sexual powerhouse. Like you have a lot of energy stored up in that erect. And so you're feeling that. And then now when you breathe the energy up, you can have a stronger effect, generally speaking. But the pathways are there. If you've already practiced your breathing, you can have no erection and still have waves of energy come through your body.
I think women can learn this too. I feel like it's something really important for us too. Because I know with me, I'm pretty quick once I'm in it, once I get there, and then it's like the whole idea of relaxing into it. And I remember talking to Annette Benning as well. She was talking about how she plays with her partner and creating a multi-orgasmic experience.
Yeah, I think women could definitely benefit from it. With the story or the storyline is, well, women can more easily have them. I think that's just because there's not an ejaculation. Well, there is a female ejaculation, but not the kind that ends the session. Right. So that's why most guys are one and done. It's like, oh, had my ejaculation. That's it. That's what sex is. And I'm here to say that there's a lot more than that.
So I actually had a partner who was the opposite of most men, where he could come like 3 times in an hour, which was extremely unusual for a man, especially in his 50s. Can that person who naturally ejaculates very easily also learn to become multi-orgasmic and contain it? Totally. Or is that person is it even easier?
No, it might be. The challenge there is that he probably has a well-worn pattern of like, okay, this is how I do it. I can ejaculate and then, I stay hard, or I have a very short refractory period. I might get a little soft, but then it comes back again. I'm online. I can have another ejaculation. So this is how he's used to doing it. And he's probably like, I'm not getting any complaints. This is great. I'm having, multiple ejaculations. My woman's having orgasms along with me. Why would I even want to do that? So for that guy, he might just stay with his structure, his plan. But if he was considering, I want to try something new. I want to have, maybe I'm tired of ejaculating 3 times in a night and I only like to ejaculate at the very end. So for him, it would be backing off his, if you're climbing up the erotic number scale, if he's like at 8, 9, 10, and 10 is an ejaculation, he's like, what happens if I just stay in the 6, 7 range and I do some of these breathing techniques that Jim is talking about, or I start to use the key sound that I'm making, or I'm doing the streaming process, or they're doing all these different techniques that I teach. And he might go like, whoa, I'm having a whole other thing that's happening and I didn't know I could do that. So he could have another experience. But my sense is that if this is his groove, he's probably, I don't know, were you satisfied with him having?
Oh, yeah. I was like, okay, like by the 3rd time, I'm like, I'm done. You just do you.
Exactly.
Now, some women would be like all over that. I was not one of those. I was probably menopausal then too. So other things going on. But anyways, so is this something that a man can learn with a partner, or is it something he can do by himself, or either or?
Yeah, either or. Usually I say it's more helpful to fly solo before you take passengers. So if it's a lot of it is solo practice, you're doing self-pleasuring, you're doing the breathing practice, there's the PC pumps that you're doing, pelvic rocking, learning to do all that on your own. And so it starts to feel very natural and very familiar. And you're like, oh, I could just make this part of sex, so that when you go start having actual intercourse with a partner, you can do the practice and it doesn't feel technique-y. Do you know what I mean? It's not like, now I have to think about this other thing. It does a little bit at first because, you tend to go back into your old habit patterns when you dive back into intercourse with a partner. But suddenly, this for most guys, they're like, oh, right, I remember the thing. So they're doing the breathing and then they're like, oh, it's working. And then, it's like it's not a linear progression. You don't just continue to get better and better. It's like, oh no, failure. Oh, whoa, whole new experience. I'm like having this shaking, trembling thing and I'm making sounds and she's really into it. And so that's the kind of thing I'll get back from guys. So yes, that's you learn to practice this by yourself, then take on a partner. But if you have a willing partner who wants to explore with you and sort of like, what happens if I give you a blowjob or I give you a hand job and I'm with you and you do this? Can you have an orgasm while I'm next to you instead of being inside of me? So partners who are willing to experiment and be like, let's be playful with it and make it like a little laboratory. Those guys generally have the best results because it's like a friendly environment rather than I have to do all this stealth mode stuff on my own. And then I got to present it to my partner as if I'm a completed human, human male. So it's more, the results are stronger when the woman's engaged.
How long does it take to get to that peak place of multi-orgasmic
Yeah,
loving?
it kind of never, well, first of all, it never ends. You don't really get to a peak place and it ends. It just kind of keeps changing over time. I think if you had somebody who was really dedicated and they already had the stamina down and they were doing the practices regularly, it might be as short as a couple of months because something would trigger in them and they go like, oh yeah. And I've also had people come to me that already had non-ejaculatory orgasms. They just wanted more control. Right? Oh, okay. So it takes me, half an hour to get there. She's already had 3 orgasms and wants to stop. And then I have to kind of rush to get my, my non-ejaculatory orgasm. How can I have it happen more quickly? So those guys I'm coaching like, okay, let's do things to make it happen faster. Here, try these techniques. I kind of customize a program for them. And now they're having faster, non-ejaculatory orgasms that kind of with her along the way. So it really depends where you're at in your development. Some men and some body types, I think they're just more earthy. The energy moves more slowly. I've had those kind of guys contact me a year after training with me and they're like, it finally happened. And then other guys are like kind of, savants in some way, or their bodies just know the material and it happens really quickly for them after maybe a month and a half, something like that. So that's a huge range.
And is it something where you coach them live or via Zoom, or is it an online program?
Well, the online program is Multi-Orgasmic Lover. And guys can just get that and go through the modules, 10 modules of video and audio, takes you through the whole thing. And then some men are like, I want accountability. I want a customized program. I want you to talk to me. And I also have relationship issues coming up because I want to work with my partner. So I want to work with you designing that program for me.
Got it.
And so either way, it would work one-on-one coaching or with the online program.
And you're not acting as a surrogate. You're just helping them by them giving you feedback, I'm assuming, or are you actually working in tandem with them, trying it out?
I'm giving them homework. And it's like, okay, here's where you're at. Here's the things to work on. Come back and report next week or in the next 2 weeks. So for example, if they're really busy, it might be a 2-week gap. So I have more data points when they come back. They're like, okay, I did the practices, I did the sound thing, I did the streaming. It feels weird, but I did feel this rush of energy in my body and some tingling in my fingers. I'm like, great, let's go from there. So it's kind of dial it in for them based on what feedback they're giving.
All right. I'm sure people are wondering, how the hell did you come up with this thing? Where did this come from?
Well, I was in the wizarding world with my magic wand. And, so the first time this happened to me was a woman was going down on me. This is after a breakup with a fiance. And the woman put a slender vibrating in my while she was going down on me. And I'd never experienced anything like that before. And I had a non-ejaculatory orgasm with that. And I was shocked and thrilled. And I couldn't repeat that. I couldn't make that happen again somehow, as hard as I tried. And so I started studying. At that point, the same woman got me a book about tantra, which I ended up going to the woman, Margot Anand, who wrote that book. I ended up going to a teacher training with her 10 years later. But I did the practices in the book. I hired tantrikas, people who practice tantra, to work with me. I'd like to do fire breath orgasms, and I went to workshops. I read more books. So anyway, I felt very devoted to this, and I was also doing a lot of other things to open energy up of my body. I started doing contact improvisation. I was rolling around on the big physio balls, and I had this whole pattern where I was stretching and opening on the balls. I was doing African dance, went to energy healing school and massage school, and I was just doing a lot of things, personal growth work, to open myself up. And then I started having these shaking things that were happening and during sex, and women were like, what's happening over there? What are you doing?
An alien in our bed.
I don't know. It's just happening. It was kind of exciting, but I didn't know what was going on. And it got stronger and stronger until finally at some point I was in a teacher training with Margot, and she had me demo this thing where she wasn't even touching me, but she was combing energy up my body and doing all this stuff. And I was standing in front of a group of 50 people kind of shaking and basically having an orgasm in front of everybody. Wow. That was obviously non-ejaculatory, but it was this energetic thing. So it wasn't the kind of genital-focused non-ejaculatory orgasm that I had originally with the dildo, but it was more of a big energy orgasm that happened. And so after that, I kind of was like, I think I had to go talk to Margot. I said, I think I think I can have non-ejaculatory orgasms. She's like, I think so too. And I think you should go teach some men how to do that. So she kind of kicked me out or pushed me out and was like, you need to be teaching men to do this. So that got me started. And I created an in-person program called Sexual Energy Mastery, where I invited, 10 to 20 guys on a repeating basis to come in person. So I'd say like, okay, here's this breath practice I'm thinking about. Let's do it all and then take it home and practice it and tell me what worked and what didn't. And so I built the program out of this kind of greatest hits from the guys who were in these, what would you call it, beta programs kind of, and watching them change and me taking the best practices out of that and then building this program from there.
Wow. How long has it been around?
The program itself, as a multi-orgasmic lover, it's been here for 12 years. And I had different versions of that before then. There was something called the Stamina Secret and the Sexual Energy Mastery. And I called it different things at different times.
What you mentioned in your bio, a certain kind of tantra. Was it sky dancing tantra? What is that?
The particular Margot Anand is the one who's the lineage holder for sky dancing tantra. So Margot went to India in her 20s and studied with Osho, Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, and learned a lot of material from him in terms of opening up her own sexuality. And she came back and kind of pulled in some bioenergetics and some psychology and, safe sex practices and different things to make this thing called sky dancing tantra. And she started in Europe. She eventually had 9 different organizations that she was working with there, and it came to the United States. And she wrote the book and it became a bestseller. So you could say it's sacred sexuality for the everyday person, something like that. It's the kind of thing where you're shifting from historical or porn-based model of thrusting sex to a more spacious, relaxed sex laboratory that eventually becomes a place of union with a partner where you're doing breathing together and you're visualizing together, and there's a state of oneness that starts to happen as a result of these practices.
So it's like the somatic sensuality, because I've talked to someone else who had a similar kind of, she was a somatic practitioner, like that was her training, and it sounds familiar, but I guess different colors of the same idea or not necessarily?
Yeah, there's it's more structure than that. I think of somatics as being a part of this. It's definitely a part because it's more sensuality based. It's more being present with lovemaking, which I think is a lot of somatic sexuality. It's a lot of ways that people heal from their sexual trauma is working with somatic sexuality. But this has got a bigger picture. It involves invoking deities and doing heart-opening work and visualizations, meditation. It's like a series of practices that not only help you be more present in your body, but have you connect with something that's larger than yourself, you and your partner. It's almost as if there's an energy that wants to move between the two of you that's relational, but it's also bigger than that. It's a larger container.
Interesting. And do you teach that as well? Is that, or is it something you practice?
Yeah, I teach teachers at this point. So, for instance, in a couple of months, I'll be going to Bali with Margot. Margot lives there. And we're teaching a module of a teacher training for 60 future sky dancing tantra teachers. So she and I will be teaching practices like the dynamic streaming practice, which is a shaking practice. And then you have a partner holding your legs open in a butterfly position while you do breathing and say words. And there's another one called the chakra wave, where you're moving energy up through various sections of your body, culminating in a breath coming out of your body. And you're doing that with a partner. So we're teaching these teachers how to lead groups of people in these practices.
I keep hearing in this, I guess, in every aspect of life, this whole idea of being present, that everything gets better when you're able to be present. And that seems to be like the starting point, is just figuring out how to do that.
Absolutely. And starting and kind of ending point too. You want to, like, I know for me, if I feel a moment of dissociation in lovemaking, I have to actually stop and say and call myself on it. So like, oh, sorry, I wasn't here for a moment, because it not only helps me come right back to being present, but it also lets my partner know, oh, that thing that I was feeling, that kind of emptiness, or I lost you for a second, it's not me, it was him. So she can kind of rest and relax more that and then gives her permission to also say like, oh yeah, it wasn't here for a second. So that kind of accountability, I guess you could say self-accountability, is really powerful for keeping you connected with a partner.
Interesting. I need to get there. I try. I've been meditating, and like finally I just changed the app that I'm using because I really just was kind of listening but not actually getting into it. So I'm trying to get more present, but I'm hyper, like all over the place. I guess many of us are these days. It's very hard to do, but I guess if it means better sex too, it's definitely worth trying it out or getting there.
Practice. Yeah, I mean the monkey mind and the challenge of the ADHD, just like I'm going to keep shifting my focus. I want this over here and what's happening over there, and like to have all that calm down and rest. It's such a beneficial yet very difficult practice to do in some level of to the degree where you really feel more calm and centered inside most of the time.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Is there anything that you want to add? Any topics that we didn't cover? And I wanted to make sure that the audience understands how the possibility of becoming multi-orgasmic. I think that will be very attractive. Are there any other topics? So I have 3 questions that I usually ask at the end. If not,
I'll just say that I'm getting more fascinated by this idea of growing older and still being sexually active. And I think there was a moment challenging for me in my late 50s where I was thinking, like, I think I'm kind of crested the peak and it's over. And that's, I don't mean over. I mean, like, it's kind of all downhill from here. I mean, it was a great run. And then I met a partner where I have had absolutely the best sex of my life, like no question, 2 times or 3 times better. And just because of, whatever it's been, some of it's chemistry in the person, but most of it is what's being drawn out of me. It feels like the very best of me, and all the practices that I've done to this point are being used. Everything from bringing, physical intensity and kind of a dominant feeling to being able to surrender more fully and open up to this kind of force of life moving through me, to like orgasm experiences I've never had before, and just for hours and hours. I'm like, wow, well, whatever I thought about being done is not true. So I just want to say that in case there are folks who are listening to this or watching this and thinking, yeah, maybe I should pack it up. Maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you should look at the possibility of, if you really want this to expand and grow and keep finding ways of living your best sexual life, whatever that might look like.
I love that. That is exactly my message, that sex isn't over. It's different, and that we don't have to give it up just because we're getting old. I love that message. That's a great message. All right. Where can people find you?
The website is awakenedmasculine.com. And there's a free gift on there. If guys want to see the 33 ways to touch her, I have a video that's a free download. And you have me with 4 lingerie-clad women and me showing the various ways to touch her to bring her pleasure.
That's great. And I'll put links definitely in the show notes to that. Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. I learned a lot.
It's been great being with you, Karen. Thanks for your great questions.